Get out of my sight. You don't belong here. The private club breathed wealth from every corner. Mahogany panels lined the walls, while ambient lighting created an atmosphere of exclusivity and power. Maya moved between tables with the grace of long practice, carrying champagne flutes with steady hands. 7 years in high-end, service had taught her to become invisible when needed, to anticipate requests before they formed on lips, to maintain composure through anything. But tonight carried a different weight. The staff had been buzzing since morning when the booking was confirmed. Dante Morty. Even the general manager's voice had shaken slightly when he gathered everyone for a briefing about excellence and perfection. Maya didn't follow the intricacies of international business empires. She understood enough to know that certain names carried weight that could crush careers, that some people existed in a different stratosphere entirely. Dante Morty was clearly one of them. She was arranging fresh flowers at table 12 when he entered. The entire room seemed to contract around him. He commanded space without effort, moving through the entrance like someone who'd never questioned his right to be anywhere. Probably 6'2", athletic build, wearing a navy suit that looked custom-made for his frame. Dark hair, Mediterranean features, eyes that missed nothing. Maybe 32, though he carried himself with the authority of someone who'd conquered boardrooms before most people graduated college. 4 associates surrounded him, but Maya barely noticed them. Morty drew focus like gravity draws matter, effortlessly and completely. "Your most private section," he said to the manager, his accent carrying notes of Italian sophistication. "And someone who knows what they're doing." The manager practically vibrated with eagerness. "Absolutely, Mr. Morty. Right this way, sir." They were seated in her area. Naturally. Maya caught her manager's pointed look, saw the small gesture that meant everything was riding on this. She collected menus, straightened her posture, and approached with practiced professionalism. "Good evening. Welcome to the Meridian. I'm Maya, and it will be my pleasure to serve you tonight." Morty didn't acknowledge her immediately. He was reviewing something on his tablet, fingers moving with decisive precision. When he finally lifted his gaze, his eyes swept over her with an assessment that felt clinical, measuring. "Water," he stated flatly. "Bottled, imported, specific gravity below 50. Something in his delivery made her hesitate. Not the request itself, but the way he made it sound like she'd already disappointed him somehow. "Of course," she responded, keeping her tone warm. "May I walk you through tonight's featured selections?" "I'm capable of reading," he gestured dismissively at the leather-bound menu. "If I require assistance, I'll make it known." His companions shifted in their seats. One of them, a younger man with apologetic eyes, mouthed a silent sorry in her direction. Maya nodded and moved toward the service bar. In the galley kitchen, she released a measured breath. Difficult patrons were part of the landscape. She'd navigated far worse. But something about Morty's casual contempt settled wrong, created friction she couldn't immediately identify. She returned with 4 bottles on a silver tray, placing them with precise movements. Morty hadn't opened his menu. "Have you decided on your selections, or would you prefer additional time?" "How long have you been employed here?" he asked abruptly, his dark eyes locking onto hers. They were almost black in the low illumination. 7 years, sir." 7 years, he leaned back, studying her. "And they still have you delivering water. That communicates something, doesn't it?" Heat climbed her throat. Around them, other conversations continued, but Maya felt isolated in a bubble with him. His associates were visibly uncomfortable now. "Dante," the kind-eyed one murmured quietly, "perhaps we should just—" "I'm engaging in dialogue, Marco." Morty's voice remained pleasant, but iron reinforced the undertone. He returned his attention to Maya. "I'm simply curious about competence levels. This establishment claims to be the premier venue in the city. I have expectations." "And those expectations will be exceeded," Maya said. Her voice emerged cooler than she'd intended. Something shifted in Morty's expression. Interest, perhaps, or surprise. "Will they? Because from my vantage point, I'm observing someone who appears like they'd rather be anywhere else. I assure you, my complete attention is on delivering exceptional service." Is that so? He angled his head slightly. You're rigid, distracted. When I specified water preferences, you hesitated. That delay indicates either inadequacy or resentment, which characterizes you. This transcended rudeness. This was deliberate, calculated. Maya had managed drunk patrons, inappropriate advances, unreasonable demands. But Morty was none of those things. He was completely sober and completely intentional in his condescension. Neither, she said quietly. I paused because I wanted to ensure I captured your exact preferences. Precision is fundamental to quality service. Is it? His smile held no warmth. Well then, let's discover just how precise your attention actually is. He proceeded to order modifications so complex she'd rarely encountered their equal. Substitutions, exact temperature specifications, sauces deconstructed and reconstructed, vegetables prepared through multiple techniques. His companions ordered straightforward dishes, clearly attempting damage control. Maya transcribed everything without comment. When she confirmed the order back, every detail was flawless. Remarkable recall, Morty said, for someone who's been delivering water for 7 years. She held his stare directly. Will there be anything additional? For several heartbeats, they locked eyes. The space between them felt electrically charged, like atmosphere before lightning. Then Morty waved his hand in dismissal. That will suffice. In the kitchen, Maya's hands trembled as she submitted the order. The executive chef, Pierre, registered her state immediately. What occurred out there? You look prepared to commit violence. Table 12, she said. The VIP, he's challenging me intentionally. She turned to face Pierre. Every statement has been crafted to diminish. Not aggressive, not obvious, just relentless. Pierre's expression hardened. You want me to notify management? No, Maya drew a steadying breath. I've managed worse. I can manage him. But as she delivered courses, bringing appetizers with impeccable timing and presentation, Morty continued his systematic campaign of subtle degradation. Her uniform had wrinkles, though it didn't. She was breathing audibly, though she wasn't. The glassware had smudges, though it was spotless. She moved too hastily. Too slowly, always something. His companions looked increasingly mortified. Marco kept apologizing under his breath when Morty wasn't paying attention. Through everything, Maya maintained her composure. Years of experience had forged patience in her, but underneath, something else was accumulating. Not rage exactly, more like resolve. She was delivering their entrees when the breaking point arrived. The plate was perfectly balanced, the presentation flawless. She'd verified everything twice with Pierre before leaving the kitchen. As she approached, Morty was speaking rapid Italian to one of his associates, making a dismissive gesture that made his companion's face fall. Maya placed the first plate before Marco, who thanked her softly. The second went to the man on Morty's left. When she reached Morty himself, she positioned his extensively modified dish exactly according to his earlier specifications. He examined it for perhaps 5 seconds before speaking. This is incorrect. Maya blinked. I apologize. The reduction, he indicated with his knife, not touching the food. I explicitly stated the herb component should be isolated. This has oregano incorporated. She'd watched Pierre construct it personally. There was no oregano in that portion of the reduction. Sir, I can guarantee. Are you suggesting I'm fabricating this? His voice remained soft, but something dangerous entered the equation. Around them, adjacent tables had quieted. Nearby diners were watching. I understand what I requested. I understand what I'm observing. And I understand incompetence when it's presented to me on fine china. This was it. The confrontation he'd been engineering all evening. Maya felt the weight of the moment, felt her manager's attention from across the room, felt the careful neutrality she'd maintained all night beginning to fracture. I'll have the kitchen remake it immediately, she said, reaching for the plate. No, Morty's hand moved, not making contact, but blocking her reach. I want clarification first. Do you believe I'm unintelligent? Do you think I came here to be treated like some imbecile who doesn't comprehend his own preferences? Certainly not, sir. Then, why are you debating with me? Why are you standing here constructing excuses instead of correcting your error? Multiple responses surfaced in Maya's mind. Professional ones, apologetic ones, the kind that would smooth everything over and carry her through the remainder of her shift. But something about the calculated nature of his cruelty, the deliberate humiliation he'd been orchestrating all evening, brought a different truth to her lips. Because it isn't an error, she said quietly, and we both understand that. The atmosphere went absolutely still. Morty's expression didn't shift, but something changed in his eyes. Interest, sharp and sudden. Excuse me. The dish is exactly as you specified it. The reduction is separated correctly. There's no oregano where you're indicating. Maya kept her voice level, professional, but she didn't retreat. You've been testing me all evening, identifying faults where none exist. I've accommodated every demand, but I won't stand here and accept responsibility for something that's correct. Maya, her manager's voice came from behind her, tight with alarm. She ignored him. Her focus was entirely on Morty, whose face had gone very still. His companions looked like they wanted the earth to open beneath them. You believe you can address me this way? Morty asked softly. I believe respect operates in both directions, she replied. Even in an exclusive club, even between a patron and service staff. For a long moment, nobody moved. Maya was peripherally aware of her manager approaching, probably to apologize profusely and terminate her simultaneously. She was aware of other patrons watching, of kitchen staff observing through the service window. But mostly she was aware of Morty, of the way he was looking at her like she'd just done something completely unprecedented. Then he smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. What's your annual compensation? He asked. The question disoriented her. What? Your salary, what is it? I don't see how that's. Answer the question. Maya's jaw tightened. With gratuities, approximately 52,000. Morty extracted his wallet, removed a black card, and handed it to Marco without breaking eye contact with her. Settle the account. Include a gratuity of $60,000. Marco's eyes widened dramatically. Dante, that's... Did I solicit your perspective? No, sir. Marco took the card and hurried toward the front desk. Morty stood, fastening his suit jacket with deliberate movements. He was taller than Maya had realized. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. Not because of his looks, though he was devastatingly handsome, but because of something else. Something that radiated from him like contained fire. You have fire, he said, his voice low enough for only her to hear. I respect that, but fire without discipline is just chaos. Remember that. He started to leave, his remaining companions scrambling to follow. Maya stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. Then Morty paused and turned back. You're wasted here, he said, serving champagne to people who don't see you, but you already know that, don't you? Before she could formulate a response, he was gone. The club erupted in whispers. Her manager materialized at her side, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and disbelief. What just transpired? Did he really? Marco at the front is saying something about 60,000. Maya couldn't answer. She was staring at the entrance Morty had disappeared through, trying to process what had just occurred. The entire evening had been an examination, but she couldn't determine what she'd passed or failed. And that gratuity, that absurd, impossible sum, felt less like generosity and more like a declaration. But of what? 4 days later, Maya was inventorying spirits when Marco walked into the club. She recognized him immediately. He looked different in daylight, younger, less severe. He approached the host station, spoke briefly, then turned and spotted her. His expression brightened with recognition and something like relief. Maya, he said, walking over, I was hoping you'd be here today. Can I help you? She kept her tone neutral, though her pulse had accelerated. I need to discuss the other night with you. He glanced around at the afternoon crowd. Is there somewhere private we could talk? Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. Whatever this was, it couldn't be positive. But curiosity overrode caution. She led him to the small staff room, keeping the door open. "I wanted to apologize," Marco said immediately, "for how Dante treated you. He was testing you, yes, but he crossed lines. He usually does." "Why are you here?" Maya asked directly. Marco hesitated, then produced an envelope from his jacket. "He asked me to deliver a job offer." Maya stared at the envelope like it might detonate. A job offer. He needs someone to oversee his legitimate business operations. Hotels, commercial real estate, investment properties. Someone who can't be intimidated, who speaks truth when things are wrong, who has spine. Marco smiled slightly. "Apparently, you made quite an impression by confronting a billionaire, by being the first person in recent memory who didn't fold." He extended the envelope. "The compensation is listed inside, so are the position details. It's legitimate work, I promise. Nothing illegal. Dante keeps his criminal family history completely separated from his legitimate ventures." Maya didn't take the envelope. "Why me? He could recruit anyone. Someone with credentials, with connections, with..." "He said you have something they don't. Hunger." Marco set the envelope on the break room table. "He said you have real hunger, not the manufactured kind that comes from wanting status symbols. He said people like you either succeed spectacularly or incinerate everything trying. And either way, it's compelling to observe." "That's insane." "Perhaps," Marco shrugged. "But the offer's genuine. You have 4 days to decide. If you're interested, contact the number inside. If not, discard it and forget this conversation happened." He headed for the exit, then paused. "For what it's worth, I think you should accept it. Dante is difficult, but he's fair, and he rewards excellence when he finds it." After he left, Maya stood alone in the break room, staring at the envelope. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister about rent being overdue. Another from the hospital about her father's bills. Another from her student loan servicer about missed payments. She picked up the envelope. Inside was a single page, professionally formatted. The salary figure made her hands shake. It was more than quadruple her current earnings. Below it were details about benefits, housing stipend, signing bonus. At the bottom, handwritten in sharp, precise script, was a note. "Fire needs oxygen. Let's see what you ignite." It wasn't signed, but she knew the author. Maya sat down heavily, her mind racing through possibilities, through risks, through the careful existence she'd constructed, and how fragile it actually was. She thought about Morty's calculated testing, about his assessing eyes, about the way he'd looked at her like she was an equation he wanted to solve. This was dangerous. Everything about this screamed danger. Her phone buzzed again. Another bill. Another reminder of how hard she worked just to tread water. She pulled out her phone and stared at the number printed on the letter. 4 days to decide whether to step into the flames. Maya called the number on the 3rd day, not because she'd made a decision, but because she needed more information. That's what she told herself as she listened to the phone ring once, twice, then connect to a voice she hadn't anticipated. "I was wondering when you'd call." Morty's voice, unmistakable even through the phone. Not Marco, not some assistant, him. "I have questions," Maya said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "Naturally, meet me tonight, 8 o'clock. I'll send the address." "I work tonight." "Call in sick." "I don't lie to employers." A pause, then something that might have been amusement in his tone. "Then tell them the truth. Tell them you have a meeting that might alter your trajectory. See what they prioritize more, your honesty or your servitude." He disconnected before she could respond. The address he sent was in the financial district, where glass towers reflected the bay and wealth spoke in silence. Maya took a subway and walked, her best professional clothes feeling inadequate as she moved through streets lined with vehicles that cost more than annual salaries. The building was all contemporary architecture and minimalist design. The lobby receptionist took her name, made a call, then directed her to the 31st floor. Private elevator, biometric access, everything designed to remind visitors they were entering a different stratosphere. Morty's office occupied a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. He stood with his back to the entrance, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He wore charcoal slacks and a white shirt with sleeves rolled to his forearms, somehow more formidable in casual attire than he'd been in formal wear. He ended the call and turned. "You came. You knew I would." "I hoped you would. There's a distinction." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Sit." Maya remained standing. "I'm not here to play additional games. I need to understand what this actually is." Something flickered across his face. Approval, perhaps. "Direct, excellent. What do you want to know?" "Why me? And don't repeat that line about backbone. Plenty of people have backbone." Morty moved to his desk, leaning against it with his arms crossed. "Do you know what I observed that night at the club? Everyone else saw a server performing her function. I saw someone suffocating. Someone who'd constructed a cage of professionalism and courtesy and was slowly dying inside it. That's quite a psychological assessment from someone who spent an evening insulting me." "I wasn't insulting you. I was stripping away the performance to see what existed underneath." He tilted his head. And underneath was fury, controlled, channeled, but fury nonetheless. The kind that develops from being underestimated your entire existence. Maya's hands tightened at her sides. "You don't know anything about my existence." "Don't I? Let me hypothesize." Morty's eyes never left hers. "You're intelligent, probably more intelligent than most people in any space you occupy. But you're a black woman in a country that barely acknowledges your presence. So you smile, you accommodate, you work twice as hard for half the recognition. And every day you swallow the fury because expressing it would just confirm every stereotype they already hold." The accuracy of it stole her breath. She wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't form. "I understand cages," Morty continued quietly. "I was born into one, son of a crime family, expected to inherit blood and violence. Except I wanted something different. So I constructed legitimate enterprises, laundered money until it was so clean it was pristine. Now I operate in legitimacy and everyone still treats me like I'm in darkness." "That's not equivalent." "No," he agreed. "But it's similar enough that I recognize the signs. You want out of that club. You want someone to see your capabilities. You want to matter. And you think you can provide that." "I think you can seize it." Morty pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them. He stopped just within her personal space, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. "I'm not offering you a gift, Maya. I'm offering you a battlefield. Work for me and you'll face prejudice from my Italian staff, suspicion from my business partners, and constant testing from me. It will be more challenging than anything you've encountered." "Then why would I accept?" "Because you're exhausted from being invisible. Because you want to prove something to the world, to yourself, perhaps to every person who ever looked through you like you were transparent." His voice dropped lower. "And because you're curious. You want to discover if you can actually do this, or if you've been deceiving yourself about your own capabilities." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Everything he was articulating was manipulation. Had to be. He was reading her, weaponizing her own desires against her. But knowing, that didn't make his words any less effective. What exactly would I be doing? Managing my portfolio of legitimate holdings, making decisions about investments, staffing, strategy. You'd have authority, genuine authority, but you'd also have to earn respect from people who won't want to grant it to you. And if I fail? Then you fail. I don't believe in safety nets. They make people cautious. Morty stepped back, returning to his desk. But I don't think you'll fail. I think you'll surprise everyone, including yourself. Maya wanted more time to think, to analyze, to make a measured decision. But standing in that office with the city lights spreading below them like scattered stars, she felt something shift inside her chest. A door opening, or maybe a cage unlocking. "I need guarantees," she said. "Contract terms in writing, clear boundaries about what's legal and what's not. And I need your word that if I discover anything illegal in the businesses I'm managing, I can leave without consequences." Morty's expression turned serious. You have my word, and you'll have everything documented before you sign anything. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? Maya looked at his outstretched hand. This was insane. She barely knew him. Everything about this screamed risk, screamed danger, screamed that she should walk away and forget this conversation ever happened. But she thought about the club, about carrying trays for people who never saw her face. She thought about her father's medical bills, about her cramped apartment, about the future she'd mapped out that looked exactly like her present, only older and more exhausted. She reached out and clasped his hand. His grip was firm, his skin warm. We have an agreement. Morty's smile was slow, satisfied. Excellent, start Monday. Marco will brief you on. The office door burst open. A woman strode in, stunning in an emerald dress, her expression volcanic. She spoke rapidly in Italian, gesturing at Maya, her voice escalating with each word. Morty's face went carefully blank. He responded in Italian, his tone sharp. The woman laughed, bitter and cold. She switched to English, her accent thick but clear. So this is your new project. Another woman you think you can reshape. She turned to Maya. Did he tell you about the last one? Did he tell you what happened to her? Isabella, that's enough. Morty's voice carried a warning. No, she deserves to know what she's walking into. Isabella moved closer to Maya, her eyes glittering with something dangerous. He collects broken things, thinks he can reconstruct them, but everything he touches eventually shatters. Who are you? Maya asked, though dread was already forming in her stomach. Isabella's smile was razor-sharp. I'm his wife. The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya's eyes snapped to Morty, who hadn't moved, whose expression revealed nothing. Ex-wife, he said finally. We're divorced. Are we? Isabella's laugh was crystalline and cruel. Tell her about the papers, Dante. Tell her why they're not filed yet. Tell her about the arrangement you made with my father. The city lights blurred beyond the windows. Maya's hand, still warm from Morty's grip moments ago, had gone cold. She looked between them, Morty's locked jaw, Isabella's triumphant expression, and realized she'd just stepped into something far more complicated than a job offer. What arrangement? Maya heard herself ask. Isabella's smile widened. Oh, this is going to be entertaining. If you enjoyed this story, kindly subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next part.